Hello, we are in Tokyo. This is part of a delegation level visit of O.P. Jindal Global University to Japan. My name is Raj Kumar. I'm the founding Vice Chancellor of O.P. Jindal Global University in India. I have with me six of my outstanding colleagues. We have been in Japan for the last 6 days. It has been an absolutely fantastic visit. We have visited 5 cities, starting from Tokyo, and then to Yamanashi, and then Kyoto, and then Osaka, and then Hiroshima. These visits led us to 14 universities across Japan, and we were able to sign substantive collaborative agreements and memorandum of understandings with 7 of the leading Japanese universities. I also want to mention that the purpose of this visit was also to engage and interact with the wider Japanese society. I had the privilege to address the parliamentarians in the Japanese parliament, in their committee, and we had wide-range discussions surrounding the India-Japan relationship, as well as the future of educational partnership between India and Japan. Today I have with me my colleagues where we intend to speak about the visit and also the promise that it holds for the future of the relationship between India and Japan, especially in the field of education. Let me begin my first question to my colleague, Professor Vasilin Popovsky. Vasilin, you have been in Japan before for a decade, and now you are in India for the last decade. What do you think is the future of the relationship between India and Japan, especially in the context of education?
I think it is a historic moment, and the future is, for me, optimistic. I think looking at the gap that existed in the past with the lack of enough students from India, Japan, and Japanese students in India, which we discovered, and doing what I will call the charming attack. We spoke to not only those 14 universities that we met face to face, but also to several others during our interactions and dinner receptions. We found that we can do a lot, and I'm very optimistic, as I said, because we saw, for example, in Hiroshima, a willingness to host 100 of our students, and not for a short program, but for a whole year, or so-called 3+1 program. Then we saw the willingness of all presidents of the universities we met, including the last meeting we had, somebody we meet for the first time. They knew very little about us, we knew very little about them. But the president of the university, shaking the hand of the vice chancellor, said, "I'm ready to sign an MOU." And it happened only for less than an hour after we talked to them. We saw willingness in the best Japanese universities, private and national, such as Tokyo University, such as Macon, Shisha, Kansai Gaidai, Wansei, and others. And I think we will sign MOUs with all of them, and we will start filling the gap that we discovered in missing enough students exchanges. And it will take some time, but obviously with hard work from our side and with the commitment from the Japanese side, I think that will happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vasilin. Let me move to Professor Ambassador Mohan Kumar. Mohan, why don't you give us a big picture, view about India-Japan? I mean, we know that we've had a very long-standing relationship between India and Japan. Historically, we can trace the early origins of Buddhism and its influence and impact on Japanese people. We can also talk about the fact that India had recognized Japanese sovereignty by signing a treaty just after the Second World War, when Japan was seen as an international pariah. We can also talk about the visit of the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's grandfather to India in the early 1950s upon the invitation of our first Prime Minister. But those are all sort of historical and somewhat of a long heritage, relationship. But today, how do you see the relationship between both our countries, not just in education, but also the broader level?
Thank you, Raj. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is one of the most important relationships contemporary times. India has about 25 odd strategic partnerships for countries with countries around the world, but we generally think 10 to 15 countries of those are extremely important. Japan, without doubt, is the closest partner that India has in Asia. And for a close partner, you have government-to-government ties, you have ties in defense, you have commercial ties, you have investment ties. I think you made a good point of mentioning to a Japanese interlocutors about the Suzuki Maruti revolution in India, and yet this strategic partnership at present does not have the ballast of people-to-people ties, especially student-to-student ties and faculty-to-faculty ties. I thought this was a first strategic foray into Japan by a major university from India. I feel very privileged to be part of the delegation from Optional Global University. I thought we carried out a charm offensive with 3 sections of the Japanese population. And I want to highlight first your address to the Japanese parliament. I thought the members of parliament, the education minister himself, coming and telling the delegation that they attach importance to Indian students coming to Japan and vice versa was important. I thought the fact that we had called on the Indian ambassador in Tokyo and the embassy getting involved in this effort is important, because long after we have gone, the embassy will then try to pursue the kind of relationships that we established. And the last but not least, of course, the kind of students, professors, faculty and researchers that we met. I thought it was extraordinary that within a short period of 6 days, we managed to meet 14 universities, sign MOUs with 7 of them. I think this is no less than a very dramatic transformation in a relationship that is just beginning. So I believe that I'm extremely optimistic about the future, and I think it now remains for us to pursue these initial relationships that we've established, and I think the future looks extremely bright upon it.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for giving us the larger picture surrounding this relationship. I want to quickly move to Professor Kathleen Wodrowski, the Dean of the Tyndall School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. Kathleen, your school, of course, has had a pioneering relationship with one of the Japanese universities. We had a wonderful visit to Yamanashi, and quite remarkably, unlike the global impression about Japan's universities focusing a lot more on engineering, science and technology, you have a relationship that is deeply embedded on the study of liberal arts. Can you please reflect a bit about that relationship, and how was your experience visiting Yamanashi, and what kind of reflections your students have shared with you about their past visits to this university and the relationship we have established?
Yes, thank you very much. It was a real privilege for me to be able to go to Yamanashi, to go to the institute there, the International College of Liberal Arts. We've had a long-standing relationship over 8 years already. The students come back overwhelmed. Our Indian students are overwhelmed. They're charmed. They want to go back. They really love the atmosphere, the beauty of the place. I must stress the shock of the beauty, the calm that persists everywhere. And yet, you see in the classrooms of art, even manga art and anime, the cleanliness of the place. Cleanliness, I mean that the lines are drawn so that you can go from one section to another and still have an interdisciplinary degree. All of the professors there is highly international. We're so welcoming. They want our students to come. And just as we want their students to come too, because I think that this big change will do a lot into harden to strengthen relations between Japan and India, which is something that's very important. It's a long-standing strategy that's been taking place. But again, I will mention students can gain from this experience, being the first in their doing Cold Woods, to be able to speak with intelligence and feeling about Japan.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for those reflections. And I think with the current expansion that we would have with this institution and others, I'm sure the liberal arts students from our university will be benefited. Let me move to Professor Upasana Mahanta. Upasana, you are of course the Dean of the Office of Admissions and Outreach, and it's also your first trip to Japan. So I want to quickly ask you, what are your impressions about Japan? But more importantly, as a university that is deeply international, we have international collaborations with over 430 universities spread across 75 countries in the world. But in that expanded collaborative engagement, Japan has, for most part of its history, had not figured. And now that Japan has begun to figure in a more prominent manner, what do you think you will be able to tell to future students and, of course, parents about the new imagination for the collaborations that we are establishing with the leading Japanese universities, especially in the context of the cultural and historical and strategic ties that India and Japan are building for the future?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you, Raj, for that question, because I have been reflecting. This is my first visit to Japan, and I have been really reflecting on what it means for our students, not only the existing ones, but the ones that are going to come in now in 2024 and 2025 and so on and so forth. And when we talk to parents, when we talk to students, we tell them about the university's commitment to internationalization. We tell them about how deeply we are committed to empowering our students to have a truly global experience. And I deeply feel, and my convictions are strengthened after this visit to Japan, is that somehow that internationalization efforts, our commitment to giving our students a global exposure will increase manyfold with the possibility of the collaborations that we are having with universities in Japan.
Thank you.
I feel
Sorry,
please. No, I just would complete my thought in the sense that when we talk to young students, when we go to various higher educational institutions in India, but also when we go to schools and look at the aspirations of young Indian students, we feel that there is a lack in that aspiration of the imagination that Japan represents as a hub of higher education. Of the possibilities that they're in, although, as Professor Catherine said earlier, there is already an imagination that Japan has been able to capture in the minds of young Indian students in terms of manga, anime. There is a tremendous amount of exposure there. So I believe that Japan holds a lot of promise, and it will be a huge potential going.
Thank you so much, Upasana, for that, because as you engage with potential students and parents, it's important for us to recognize the fact that it's not just the West that is available for opportunities provided for the students. Of course, they travel across United States, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and even Canada and other places. But there is an amazing country here in East, and also a country which has a fantastic history of higher education institutions. And let me move to Professor Padmanabha Ramanujam, who is the Dean of Academic Governance. Paddy, this is also your first trip to Japan. Briefly reflect about that experience, but more importantly, I want to talk a bit about the aspirations of students from a career standpoint. One of the things that we face in India is that increasingly companies, corporations, business enterprises are looking at unique skill sets that the students can have beyond their educational and degrees and things like that. So what do you think Japan can hold for the students of OPG Global University and the students of India, so that they can not only have a fantastic international exposure in the form of a study abroad program, but they can also connect that experience to developing the necessary skill sets to be able to work in a corporation, company, or a business enterprise to advance their career opportunities?
Thank you so much, Raj. It is indeed my first visit to Japan, and I, like Pasna was mentioning, there is a lot of promise, there is a lot of opportunities for Indian students. Let me take this conversation purely from a standpoint of career opportunities for students. And I feel that, historically speaking, there is a lot of ignorance or misunderstanding about Japanese corporations beat the kind of companies and the kind of network and the kind of potential employment opportunities that studies can create. But there is a catch. No, unlike there's a smooth transition of Indian students to US, UK, Australia, or Canada, where English becomes the dominant language. But I think the catch here is if students can learn Japanese language and build career out based on their internationalization or international experience exchange programs, I think there is amazing opportunities in Japan. My visit to Japan has only reassured me the fact that Indian students are not looking at Japan because they're not wanting to learn the language. But if they can break this language barrier, I think the world is open for them. I think Japan is offering, if not better opportunities for students compared to US or Australia. I think the corporations, the companies, the venture capital funds, I think there is huge potential for Indian students, not just restricted to our discipline or management discipline or finance discipline or liberal arts discipline, but the key would be how do we facilitate Indian students with Japanese language. I think I would leave it here.
Yeah.
But I think
Thank you so much, Barney. I think you hit it on the nail. We have noticed that time and again that language can become not just, although it could potentially become an artificial barrier, because it's a barrier that can be easily overcome. As a global university, we already offer several foreign language courses. We teach Mandarin, Chinese, Spanish, French, Arabic, German, and sometimes even Hebrew. And so there is no reason why we cannot offer a Japanese language course to our students. And I think one of our priorities will be to immediately work towards offering a Japanese language course as a part of an effort to build this relationship with Japan. Let me move to Dr. Akhil Bharadwaj. Akhil, you are, of course, heading the Office of International Relations and Global Initiatives. You have seen through the entire labyrinth of international collaborations being built across different universities in the world, and you've seen through 15 years of students going to different parts of the world. I want you to briefly reflect on the promise of Japan for international collaborations, but more importantly, what is the type of international collaborations that you have built with the specific universities to do? We have signed MOUs, and how we will take it forward.
Thank you so much, sir. One of the most prominent and a feature of paramount importance for us in this trip has been that out of the wide spectrum of 435 plus partnerships that we have built with over 75 plus countries over the last 15 years of our existence, our students will now have access to different variety of student mobility programs, diverse set of student mobility programs with leading Japanese universities with whom we have established partnerships during our trip. Not only that, we've also established faculty level engagements, so only student mobility programs, but faculty level engagements during this trip, wherein our students, research scholars and faculty members would have an outstanding opportunity to spend some duration in Japan, be it short-term study abroad program, be it semester exchange programs, be it poor degree programs. We have established partnerships with not only central universities in Japan, but also some of the leading private universities, including exchange programs. Second point, which I felt was very important for us, that we have given an opportunity for Japanese university to comprehend and to understand the imagination of new India. We want India to be in their imagination. We want that these Japanese universities and students and faculty members should have Indian exposure at this point in time, wherein India is one of the leading economies of the world, not only in the field of different industrial sectors, but also the Indian heritage system as a whole is now a sight to behold. And so in that sense, we have India immersion programs in different thematic areas where we are poised to welcome students from Japanese universities in different areas: law, international affairs, political science, public policy, economics, psychology, liberal arts and humanities, to name a few. And I would like to end with one of the very important points that during this particular trip, I would term it as a historical trip, because we have signed more than 7 MOUs during this trip. We have interacted with 14 plus Japanese universities across a very rich spectrum of Japanese universities, including central universities, prefectural universities, and private universities. It is very important that we take this forward in a very meaningful way. We have already built some substantive partnerships. We've already built some meaningful partnerships, but there's a long way to go. And I would agree with my counterpart and my colleagues here with Japanese universities and also by colleagues from Open University, that there is a massive potential to unleash, and we will make sure that we build some of the best programs for all the kind.
Thank you very much, Akhil. Let me quickly move on to another set of issues that I want to address. This is to Vaseline. Vaseline, I was quite amazed by the fact that we not only made this visit with interaction with the universities, but we had a very high-level engagement. If you see, we met with the president of the University of Tokyo, which is a global university. We met with the president of the International Christian University, and so many other presidents and deans and rectors. So in some ways, one thing I am seeing is that the Japanese are also warming up quite strongly to the idea of international collaborations and how they can establish this relationship strongly. Please reflect a bit on that part of it.
You're absolutely right. I cannot think of a better moment to start this collaboration. When I arrived 20 years ago, Japanese universities were not international at all. I remember looking at faculties and there will be probably one Chinese, one American and one European faculty out somewhere. By the way, the Ministry of Education in Japan put a lot of efforts in the last decade to make the Japanese university more open to internationalization. They opened a program, Global Daigaku, where they awarded 38 Japanese universities with extra budget, especially to develop postgraduate programs in English and to encourage those universities to get global. And for us also, because we are moving to the next stage in the development of the OPT Global University, which is to include new schools in science and technology, mathematics, engineering, medicine, dentistry, nursery. In a way, in 5 years from now, we will be looking very excellent, I would say, partners with the Japanese university, which are very strong exactly in the natural sciences, environmental science. So this is the time to start to build these long bridges. And as you said, we met really, I was really surprised to see a minister of education. Usually ministers don't go for a talk and just to listen for a speech. And it was extraordinary to see the minister of education coming to your talk, Raj, in the parliament, together with 20 plus members. You know, I've been to that room with other speakers, and hardly 5 or 6 members will turn up and don't ask even question. I remember a time where the master of ceremony will encourage members to ask. We had more than 20 questions to you, and it went extremely well.
Thank you very much, Vaseline. I think you have indeed set the stage in terms of the context of how Japanese universities are taking this entire effort seriously. Owen, let me ask you that. I was also quite pleased by the fact that the Indian ambassador in Japan, Mr. Simi George, had hosted us and also took this entire weight on the need for promoting higher education dialogue. The fact that he joined us on the inaugural dinner when so many other Japanese higher education leaders, as well as thought leaders and representatives from the corporate sector, as well as government. It shows the volumes about how the government of India is putting its weight behind building relationships that are not necessarily military or strategic or political or commercial nature. What do you think about that aspect? In fact, it was so nice of the Consul General in Osaka for a host dinner in honor of our visit. These are quite remarkable things that I am seeing, and probably I had not seen such degree of excitement and enthusiasm in the past.
I totally agree. And in fact, truth be told, I think even in my time in the Indian Foreign Service, I haven't seen this degree of engagement. So one particular reason why this is happening is, I think, because we have a hub and spoke system in Indian foreign policy, where the foreign policy is based on multi-alignment. And one of the key partners in that multi-alignment in Asia is undeniably Japan. As you know, Raj, India and Japan characterize their strategic partnership as global, comprehensive, and special. There are a variety of reasons why it's special. You mentioned Justice Radha Vinod Pal, the fact that India took a different view at the Tokyo trial. You mentioned the revolution of Maruti Suzuki, but also Shinzo Abe's grandfather coming at I'm talking to people in India at the invitation of India's first Prime Minister. But beyond that, I think Japan and India have realized that if Asia is going to be the future, and if indeed the next century is going to be the Asian century, there is no question that India and Japan will have to determine the broad contours of that Asian relationship or the Asian century. We cannot leave it to one country or another country, which may lead to a hegemonic Asia. India and Japan believe in a multipolar Asia, and if you're going to have an Asian century, then I think education and educators between Japan and India must play a prominent role in making sure that happens. I think that is what is behind the engagement of the government of India, the Prime Minister's own relationship with Shinzo Abe, and now the relationship with the Prime Minister here, and the relationship of the External Affairs Minister, the relationship of the External Affairs Ministry. I think that explains the kind of engagement that you saw, not just from the Indian ambassador, but also from the Indian Consul General in Lusaka.
Thank you so much, Devan, and I share all what you said, because not only they were very generous in terms of providing time, but also they deeply supported the kind of partnerships that we have established. In fact, the ambassador mentioned to us that he has been visiting every prefecture and visited some 40 plus prefectures across Japan. And so the relationship is not only driven by Tokyo, but also is embedded across all parts of Japan. Kathleen, I have a question for you, especially in the context of the need for international exposure and experience for our students. In fact, one of the things that happens in international exposures is that students, not just Indian students, but students all over the world, there is a certain degree of comfort to go to the familiar. So, British students going to, United States, or US students going to Australia, or Australian students Canada, or Canadian students going to some part of Europe. There is a certain degree of familiarity and comfort with these countries and students circulating among them. What would be the case that you will meet, and we all want to meet, that it is absolutely critical for Indian students to come to Japan and for Japanese students to come to India and experience both of our diverse cultures, but more importantly, both of our democracies, both of our commitment towards the democratic institutions and our commitment towards democracy.
Thank you. Some of this has been answered already by our colleagues here. I think one of the important things that we have to look at is the historical legacy, how it is shaped Japan and how it is shaped India. I think that these points are very important, along with the ancient history and culture of each place. You're going to find, the students will find, that there are similarities, but they will really rejoice and we put use of the differences, because the differences in the culture add to the richness of an educational experience. Being able to use these, apply them to your ideas of the future are very important. And we're moving away now from the copycat in education. Mentioning this, that going to Britain, going to the US, that's fine. But it doesn't take a lot of imagination, because we've been told all the time to do it. This is the future. But I think the future lies elsewhere. Many of you have ever mentioned that. So going to the other place, being able to discard prejudices and create a new and vibrant imagination is what's going to take.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, because your students have been pioneers in this, and I'm sure other schools of JGU, including students from across different schools, will find meaning and purpose and value in this opportunity. Let me quickly move to Professor Upasana Manta. Upasana, one of the things that I've noticed is that at the end of the day, when our students pursue these programs in the United States or Canada, it can potentially become a slightly expensive affair. While several of our students can afford But the thing that it struck me talking to several university presidents and deans here is that Japan can provide a fantastic alternative at a significantly lesser cost. And in many ways, we have an opportunity to democratize internationalization. We have an opportunity to provide access to high quality international experiences in a developed society in terms of all aspects of the ecosystem, and yet at a significantly lesser cost. Do you think that will be a huge appeal factor for our students and our parents?
Certainly, Raj. I think that would be a huge appeal factor for parents and students. And also perhaps today, for example, at Hiroshima University, when we were speaking to the Indian students studying at the university, you would see that they're truly happy to be here in Japan, that they come from different parts of the country, from Nagpur, from Kolkata, from Rohtak, and they're studying in Japan, and they truly are happy to be here. They're gaining an experience that they told us themselves that they are truly grateful for. They're excited to be here. They're looking to make their careers here. So I believe that for our parents and our students, Japan represents an opportunity of internationalization which hitherto was unexplored. We always thought about internationalization in terms of the West, which is a great opportunity. However, it's a very costly opportunity, and one has to spend a lot more money to gain the kind of experience and to have the kind of exposure that you are able to have in Japan. And we have seen the kind of cutting-edge research that is happening in Japan. We have seen the kind of hand-holding, mentoring that our students get here in Japan, that the faculty who are here, the peer, they're truly invested in making sure that the students who are studying here are well looked after. We have seen number of instances where they have various ways in which they make the students study here feel at home, and help them navigate the life in Japan, both academic and otherwise. So I believe that represents a tremendous amount of hope.
Thank you so much for that, and I think your own visit to Japan and to these universities will help to be an ambassador for Japanese universities and the possibilities that exist for our new students in particular, but also existing students there. Paddy, quickly to you, you mentioned about the career opportunities, but one of the things that we don't talk enough is that Japanese corporations have had a very strong and significant presence in India. And if we can, of course, overcome the language barrier and provide language opportunities, learning opportunities for students, I strongly believe that we could provide a pathway for our students to be able to join and work in these places. But the real question is that how do we build collaborations with the universities here so that our students can not only come and study here, but also possibly pursue an internship opportunity, so that the collaboration is not just a study program, but also as an experiential learning opportunity here in Japan.
No, thank you, Raj, for asking this question. If you unbundle this entire visit, there are three important learning opportunities for us. One, the excitement that students can actually come and then short-term programs. Second is how be part of our national education policy, how they can build a research pathway absolutely outside Jinbin and potentially in Japan universities. Today, when we visited Hiroshima, I just realized that Japan is quite building very sophisticated academic programs to cater to the younger generation. But they also suddenly realized that younger generation is a vacuum space that has been created in their economy now, because their population is largely old population and the younger generation is absolutely vacant. And now they are reaching out to universities to make sure that that vacuum is filled. But when you're talking about internship opportunities and extended career opportunities, I think it's very simple. If students can build can break the language barrier, can come here for the extended partner research program or semester exchange program, obviously they will have amazing opportunities, not only interning here, but to come back to India and work for Japanese corporation. I was just reading today that large corporations
huge investment of Japanese companies already exist in India. And we can start with Toyota, Mitsubishi, Mazda, Uniqlo. I think these are all just the beginning of Japanese companies entering into India. But if the Indian students can use this internationalization opportunity, come to Japan, so spend sufficient time either building research partner or exchange opportunities. When they go back into India, I think Japanese companies will be very welcoming them because they are eating two things. One, they have the experience of studying in Japan. They understand the culture of Japan. They understand the organization behavior, how the companies work in Japan. Right. As they go back to India, I think they will be the first mover advantage because they have studied and they can apply the learnings not only in India but also in Japan. They become truly global in Japanese context. I think that will be the best opportunity that we can give for general students, both in terms of internship and I would say placement opportunity.
Thank you so much, Paddy. And of course, we are coming to the end of this fascinating discussion with my colleagues here. The beginning itself was amazing. We had this fantastic visit to the Temple University in Japan, and it was a surprise for me because of the fact it was not just an American university in Japan, but it had this sort of Japanese way of imagining an international university in Japan. And so my question to you is that I would like you to quickly go through the kind of list of universities and what are the specific possibilities that exist in Osaka, Kyoto, Yamanashi, and of course Tokyo and Hiroshima.
Thank you so much, sir. So one of the path-making features that I have noticed in this particular visit is that whatever imagination Indian students had about Japan was more or less limited to engineering and science and technology, right?
Very true.
But with this visit, we have created a breakthrough. I think we have found out huge congruity and huge synergy between Indian and Japanese universities, especially Open University and Japanese University in the area of social sciences, humanities, and allied areas, including law and environment, public policy, economics, and other areas. That's one important thing. And, riding on those synergies, we have established partnerships with around 8 Japanese universities, and we've had substantive discussion about collaborations with 14 plus Japanese universities, including our first visit to Temple University, Japan, which not only welcomed the sort of collaborations that we offered, but also it was a very mutual sort of feeling towards them that they both want to establish substantive collaboration with us. Then in Tokyo, we had wonderful meetings with University of Tokyo, with their president and senior leadership, agreeing to explore potential collaborations with Open University in a variety of themes, followed by universities in Yamanashi, including Yamanashi Gaikuin University, University of Yamanashi, where we signed agreements for human mobility programs and faculty and relevant engagements, followed by universities in Osaka, Kyoto, Hiroshima, and other cities. So all in all, it was a holistic experience of international collaboration to us.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it is fair to say that this visit was not only historic, transformative, but holds enormous promise to the future. I think that not only we have been able to do an important contribution to the advancement of the opportunities for students of Open Global University, but we also created an India-Japan higher education imagination so that the next generation of Indian students will have greater and stronger aspirations to come to Japan, just as the students in Japan will also travel to India. We are here in Tokyo at this beautiful city, but also the majestic skyline at the back of this place where we are having this conversation. And I hope that our students and many more students and faculty members across India will be inspired to understand and appreciate this extraordinary society, which is the beautiful conglomeration of tradition and modernity, of culture and innovation, of technology and entrepreneurship, of the past, the present, and the future. Thank you very much. It's an absolute privilege for me to have this conversation with my wonderful colleagues. Thank you and congratulations to the International Office for making this visit possible.